Hi, today I wanted to talk a little bit about motherhood and some of the challenges that I know that we all face as moms. Some of us are younger, some are older, some are healthier or less healthy, some are more enthusiastic, some might be others. Other have other feelings. Some have lots of kids or a few kids, some only have one kid. Boys, girls, etc., are all over the place, and we have different feelings, thoughts, ideologies, and beliefs. We have different opinions, different ways of doing things, and different support systems, different backgrounds. Some of us might have a background in, um, daycare, or some of us might have a background in business. So quite the spectrum, especially when you're talking about children and motherhood. Um, Something I wanted to talk about that I think sometimes we as moms get afraid of, I know I do, is doing the same thing over and over and over. um, Not only for ourselves, but for our children. For today, I think I want to speak mostly about what it's like for moms when we start thinking about what it's like to do the same thing over and over, cleaning and laundry and cooking and shopping and lists and organizing and bathing and changing and dressing and I'm not even talking about anything that we do for ourselves yet. That's all for our little ones and our families. And you know, I think too often we really expect ourselves to be stay at home Sarah, or whatever your first name is, stay at home woman, stay at home wife, and stay at home mother. But really, if you're a stay at home mom, it's my belief that that's the first priority that we should have as moms. But I know everybody feels differently about it. I do feel like it's relieving to realize that my job is to take care of my little one. That includes, of course, making a clean environment for him and happy, healthy meals and taking him places and, like I said, cleaning and laundry and, all those things are included in it. But some days you're not going to get everything done. And some days you're going to get one thing done. And some days you're going to get no things done. And sometimes the idea of just doing the same thing over and over again, no matter how much time you have or ability you have to do it, is enough to hamstring us as moms and leave us without lacking motivation, without any desire to do these things, and feeling really bored and bummed out and just lacking complete motivation and inspiration. Well, I was thinking about this with regard to my little boy who seems to really crave and need something called routine. And I'm sure that you've heard this before. This is nothing new, especially little kids, toddlers. They crave and need routine. Um, and as much as that sounds boring, I think there's something to it. And I thought I would just take a little bit of time um, to sort of explore this a little bit for myself. Hopefully it might inspire you as well. Um, when I was younger, my grandmother comes from a very large Southern family, and we would go to a family reunion every year. And her brothers and sisters were scattered throughout the South and such. And so every year it would typically be at a different person's house. And we go and we get there, Thursday night or Friday, and spend all day Saturday and Sunday, and then leave Sunday morning. Um, After having seen all these people and having lots of fun and good meals and maybe doing a little sightseeing, and it was just a great time. And as a younger person, it always seemed like a longer time, sometimes kind of boring. But my grandmother, of course, really enjoyed seeing her brothers and sisters and extended family members, and I did too. But she would say when we were getting ready to leave, something like, "Well, it sure is good to see everybody. Yeah, can't believe it's time to go already. Another year." And then she'd say something like, "You know what? I'm ready. I'm ready to get home and get back in my rut." And I used to think, I knew what she meant by that. She called it a rut, a routine, the daily grind. And I used to think, well, how boring. But it's kind of like whenever you come home from vacation, you feel like, yay, I'm back in my own bed with my own things, and I have my car to use, and just your own rut. And um, although I didn't understand it then, I do now. And I got to thinking about what are things that that are related to ruts and that are positive, or what does the Bible say about these kinds of things? It does it. I mean, most of the time the Bible doesn't say things about exactly what I'm looking to find out, so it's always kind of a roundabout way. But I got to thinking, what is a rut? A rut physically is like a small ditch, or a small like channel. And in the Bible talks a whole lot about agrarian life and agriculture and farming and providing food and growing food and things like that. And of course, it talks a lot about farming. And when you think about farming, at least these days, a farmer you look at all, the land the farmer has, the crops are all arranged in rows. But before the crops grow, it just looks like a bunch of ruts, and they're all perfectly even. And the farmer does that so that the plants have enough space to grow. There's space between them, that they don't get entangled, that their root systems have some space to grow, so that they have equal and adequate access to light and rain, and so that when they're harvesting the plants, the crops, that they can get it all and it's not all tangled up and destroyed. And if they have to travel through the ruts, between the rows, they can without stepping on anything and crushing it or destroying it. And they can get to an individual plant easily that way, and they can count them and keep track of them. And I'm sure there's other reasons I'm not aware of. But in that case, a rut is really necessary. Those are things that are needed. Or I used to live in the country as a kid, and there were drainage ditches and out by the road, and that's because the water system was completely different. There was no city system, and so water that would run off the road, or additional water that was beyond the water table, what it could bear, would end up in these ditches. And sometimes the ditches would flow, and sometimes it would be somewhat stagnant, but regardless, there was water there. It wasn't in our yard, and it wasn't standing usually, and it was there to protect and help keep people safe. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and Buffalo is known for its snow, and a lot of snow, a special kind of snow called lake effect snow. Is very heavy, very dense. And another time that a rut is good, sometimes when you're driving down the road and you're in snow, it can be very difficult to know which way to go without sliding off the road, and sometimes you just can't get through, or you can't see a whole lot. But I think everyone who's ever driven up there in the winter has the same feelings about this as I do, that if you were lucky, if you get behind a snowplow or a big truck or something, because they're plowing the way, they're paving the way, and what do they leave behind them? Tire tracks, ruts, so that you can drive in those same tracks and get a little bit more traction, a friction with the road, than you would otherwise. And that's another time when a rut can be helpful. So although sometimes it can be frustrating to get stuck in our everyday everything, and sometimes it can be boring and monotonous and under challenging and depressing, the truth is that there are also times when these ruts that we're in, or routines that we get into, or that we might need to be in, are the safest places for us, the most healthy places for us. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the more I learn about this, and the more I understand that it's okay to do this, the better off I feel. I know that variety is the spice of life, and we serve and have a God, a creator, who is big on variety. And we know that just based on his creation. How many hundreds of thousands of flowers, and are out there. And then there's so many different varieties of them, and colors, and trees, and plants, and animals, and humans. No human even looks the same unless you're a twin, right? So God is really big on variety, but he's also a God of order. The sun rises, the sun sets. The seasons come and go. The tides come in and out. Life and death. God is, black and white, light and darkness. He's very orderly as well. And so I think if we can find a happy medium and not frustrate ourselves that we don't have, and I'll use this as just hyperbole, 100,000 flowers in our garden. I think that that's okay. And I think that we should be cautious that we don't overwhelm ourselves and try to do too much, and that, it's okay to be a hot mess mom. And it's okay to be that way every day, as long as we're doing the best that we can do, the best that we were created to do, looking for and seeking support and help and learning and growing and seeking God, to direct us, then I think that we're doing okay. And it's okay if we're in a rut, and sometimes it's the very best place to be.